Commander Vrell'ix had seen 342 species compete in the Galactic Combat Academy trials. 342. And not once, not in his 2 centuries of service, had he ever been genuinely surprised. Until today. Attention, all candidates. His translator box crackled, projecting his voice across the vast training arena. You stand in the most prestigious proving ground in 4 galaxies. The rules are simple. Disable your opponents. Last one standing advances to the second trial. Lethal force is prohibited, obviously, because we'd rather not start an intergalactic incident before lunch. Polite laughter rippled through the assembled crowd. Vrell'ix allowed himself a small smile. Humor helped the nervous ones relax before they inevitably embarrassed themselves. The arena floor stretched out below him, a football field-sized space of reinforced durasteel. 60 candidates from 12 different worlds stood in loose clusters, sizing each other up. There were the usual suspects, for Kryn warriors, each standing 9 feet tall with exoskeletons that could deflect plasma fire. A pair of the Xian twins who moved with the coordinated precision of a hive mind. Even a Volturi sentinel, its 6 arms already cycling through defensive positions. And then there was the human. She stood alone near the eastern wall, maybe 5.5 feet tall, looking like someone had accidentally delivered her to the wrong address. Her combat suit hung loose in places where it should have been tailored. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple tail. No weapons. No visible augmentations. No cybernetic enhancements that Vrell'ix could detect. Lieutenant Crash leaned over from his observation post. Sir, are we certain about this one? The Terran? Her physical stats are borderline laughable. Bone density comparable to a Affliction child. Muscle mass that wouldn't intimidate a cleaning drone. The Terran Council insisted, Vrell'ix muttered. Something about proving their worth in conventional combat scenarios. Apparently they're tired of being labeled as adequate marksmen with delusions of tactical superiority. What's her name again? Vrell'ix checked his datapad. Mira Kade. Age 24 standard cycles. Previous experience. Oh, this is rich. She was a gymnastics instructor on some colony world. No military background. No combat certifications. She literally taught children how to do backflips. Crash's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. This will be over in seconds. Down on the arena floor, the Kryn warriors had already identified Mira as an easy target. Vrell'ix could see them communicating through subtle head movements, planning to eliminate the weakest link first. Standard strategy. Smart, even. Mira, for her part, seemed utterly unconcerned. She was stretching, touching her toes, rolling her shoulders, like she was preparing for a morning jog rather than combat against some of the deadliest fighters in known space. Vrell'ix raised his hand, letting the gesture command silence. 60 pairs of eyes, and in some cases significantly more than 2, focused on him. Remember, he called out, this trial tests not just your strength, but your tactical awareness, your adaptability, your survival instinct. Some of you will walk out of here with honor. Most of you will limp out with humility. Either way, you'll have learned something valuable. He paused for dramatic effect. 2 centuries of this job had taught him the value of good timing. Begin. The arena exploded into motion. Except it didn't. Because Mira moved first. And when humans move with purpose, apparently the laws of physics become more of a suggestion than a rule. She crossed 20 feet in less than a second. Not running. Flowing. Her body dropped low, one leg sweeping out in an arc that caught the nearest Kryn warrior behind the knee joint, the one weak point in their otherwise impenetrable armor. The warrior toppled like a felled tree, confusion evident in its compound eyes. Before its body hit the ground, Mira was already gone, spinning away from a Thexian strike with an economy of movement that shouldn't have been possible. The Thexian's fist passed through empty air where her head had been a fraction of a second earlier. What in the 7 hells? Crash whispered. Mira's hand shot out, fingers striking a pressure point on the Thexian's neck. The fighter's eyes rolled back. She was unconscious before her twin could even process what had happened. 3 seconds. 3 opponents engaged. 2 already down. The Volturi sentinel attacked from behind, all 6 arms converging in a pattern that should have been inescapable. Mira ducked under the first 2 strikes, deflected the 3rd and 4th with her forearms, caught the 5th arm at the wrist, and used the 6th arm's momentum against itself. She twisted, pivoted, and somehow the massive sentinel was airborne, flipping over her shoulder to crash into a cluster of advancing competitors. "Stop the trial," someone shouted from the observation deck. "Absolutely not," Vrell'ix replied, his eyes wide. His translator box was having trouble keeping up with his racing thoughts. 10 seconds in. 12 fighters down. Mira wasn't fighting. Fighting implied struggle, effort, resistance. This was something else entirely. This was a master class in applied physics, taught by someone who'd apparently minored in making the impossible look casual. A Draven shock trooper tried to grab her from the left. She sidestepped, using his own grip to swing herself up and around, her legs wrapping around his thick neck. One sharp twist, and he was unconscious from a perfectly applied chokehold. She landed in a crouch, already moving toward her next target. How is she doing this? Crash demanded. Humans aren't supposed to be fast. They're not supposed to be strong. They're fragile, breakable, mediocre at best. Vrell'ix finally understood. She's not strong. Look at her. Really look. And there it was. Mira wasn't overpowering anyone. Every movement was precision. Every strike targeted joints, pressure points, weak spots that most species didn't even know they had. She was reading her opponents like data files, predicting their moves before they made them, turning their own advantages into liabilities. 20 seconds. The arena floor was littered with groaning, unconscious, or simply bewildered fighters. 30 seconds. Only 5 opponents remained, all keeping their distance now, finally realizing they were facing something completely outside their tactical training. Mira stood in the center of the arena, breathing steady, not even winded. She looked up at the observation deck, directly at Vrell'ix, and smiled. That smile said everything. It said you underestimated us. It said we've been underestimated before. It said we learned to turn weakness into strength because we had no other choice. It said welcome to the human race. The remaining fighters attacked together, a coordinated assault that represented hundreds of hours of military training across 4 different combat doctrines. It lasted 6 seconds. When the dust settled, quite literally, because someone's kinetic shield had shattered and thrown debris everywhere, Miracade stood alone. 60 candidates had entered the trial. 59 were on the ground. Total elapsed time, 48 seconds. Vrell'ix's translator box squeaked. He realized his jaw had been hanging open for an undignified amount of time. Around him, the observation deck had gone completely silent. Down on the arena floor, Mira was stretching again, cooling down like she'd just finished a light workout. "Lieutenant Crash," Vrell'ix said quietly. "Sir, cancel my afternoon appointments. And get me everything we have on human combat methodologies. Everything. I have a feeling we've been severely misunderstanding these people." "Understood, sir. What about Candidate Kade?" Vrell'ix watched as medical teams rushed onto the arena floor to tend to the stunned and injured. Not one serious casualty. She'd disabled every opponent with surgical precision. Advance her to the finals. Then clear the main combat hall. I want to see what she can do when she's actually trying. The thing about humans, Vrell'ix was rapidly learning, was that they had this absolutely infuriating habit of making the impossible look boring. 2 hours after the trial, Mira Kade sat in the debriefing room, sipping something called coffee from a thermos she'd brought from Earth. She looked relaxed, comfortable even, like she hadn't just rewritten 300 years of Galactic Combat Academy records. Vrell'ix stood across from her, datapad in hand, trying to maintain some semblance of professional composure. "So," he began, then paused because he genuinely didn't know where to start. "That was unexpected." Mira shrugged. "Was it? I mean, you did invite us. We invited humanity to prove they could compete in standard combat scenarios, not to humiliate every other species in attendance." "Oh." Mira took another sip of coffee. "Sorry about that. Should I have gone slower? I wasn't trying to show off. I just wanted to get it over with. I have a call with my sister at 1400 hours, and she gets cranky if I'm late." Crash, standing in the corner, made a choking sound that his species used to express disbelief. "You treated the most prestigious military trial in 4 galaxies like an inconvenient errand?" "Well, yeah." Mira set down her thermos. "Look, I know how this looks. Tiny human comes in, wrecks everybody, acts all casual about it. But here's the thing you all keep missing. We're not special. Not really." Vrell'ix leaned forward. "Candidate Kade, You disabled 60 trained fighters in under a minute. Fighters who've spent years, in some cases decades, preparing for this exact scenario. If that's not special, I'd hate to see what you consider remarkable. That's just it, though. Mira smiled, and there was something almost apologetic in the expression. Everything I did in that arena, any human with basic martial arts training could replicate. We're not stronger than you. We're not faster. We're definitely not tougher. A Kryn warrior could literally pull me apart like overcooked chicken. Then how? Because we had to learn. Mira's voice shifted, taking on a quality that Vrell'ix hadn't heard before. Serious. Almost sad. See, Commander, most species in the Galactic Coalition evolved as apex predators. You develop tools and intelligence from positions of dominance. Kryn have natural armor. Thexians have telepathic coordination. Volturi have multiple limbs and redundant nervous systems. You all started from the top of your respective food chains. She stood up, pacing now. Humans? We were prey. For most of our evolutionary history, we were literally running from things with bigger teeth, sharper claws, and absolutely zero interest in negotiating. We didn't have armor. We didn't have venom. We couldn't fly or breathe underwater or survive in extreme temperatures without tools we had to invent ourselves. Vrell'ix found himself listening with an attention he normally reserved for tactical briefings. Go on. So we adapted. We learned to read predators, to predict their movements, to find their weak points because we couldn't afford direct confrontation. We developed persistence hunting because we couldn't outrun prey, but we could outlast them. We created complex social structures and communication because isolated humans died and cooperative ones survived. Everything you saw in that arena wasn't supernatural. It was pattern recognition, spatial awareness, and exploiting leverage points. Skills we've been refining for hundreds of thousands of years because the alternative was extinction. Crash stepped forward. You're saying your entire species is built on weaponized anxiety? Mira laughed, genuine and bright. That's actually the most accurate description I've ever heard. Yeah, weaponized anxiety. Paranoia refined into an art form. We imagine the worst-case scenario, then we train for it, then we overthink it, then we train some more. It's honestly kind of exhausting. But effective, Vrell'ix noted. Oh, incredibly effective. Also terrible for our collective mental health. But that's a different conversation. The door to the debriefing room opened, and 3 figures entered. Vrell'ix recognized them immediately. Admiral Thorn9 of the Kryn Fleet Command, High Coordinator Vrell'ix of the Thesian Defense Network, and walking with the careful dignity of someone trying very hard not to look impressed, Supreme Legate Corvin of the Coalition Military Authority. This was about to become complicated. Commander Vrell'ix, Corvin's voice rumbled through the room like distant thunder. We've reviewed the trial footage. Multiple times. We need to discuss what this means for coalition combat doctrine. Mira straightened, suddenly looking much younger and significantly more nervous. Supreme Legate. Sir, I really didn't mean to cause any diplomatic incidents. Corvin studied her with eyes that had commanded fleets through 3 major conflicts. Candidate Kade, you've just demonstrated that our understanding of human capabilities was fundamentally flawed. That's not a diplomatic incident. That's a strategic revelation. Admiral Thorn9's exoskeleton clicked as he shifted position. My warriors trained for 15 standard years before they're considered combat ready. You defeated 4 of them in less time than it takes to process a threat assessment. In my defense, Mira said carefully, your warriors rely heavily on their armor. Once I realized the knee joints were vulnerable, it was just a matter of timing and angles. Just a matter, Thorn9 repeated. She says just a matter. High Coordinator Vrell'ix, speaking through her translation device, addressed Vrell'ix directly. Commander, what were the human's physical specifications again? Vrell'ix consulted his datapad. Bone density rated at 0.7 standard. Muscle mass 42% below coalition baseline. Reaction time measured at 0.3 seconds, which is actually considered slow by most combat standards. No cybernetic enhancements. No genetic modifications. No performance-enhancing substances in her system. And yet, Vrell'ix continued, she moved like water through stone. How? Mira cleared her throat. If I may, it's called proprioception. Body awareness. Humans are really good at knowing where we are in 3-dimensional space. Combined with pattern recognition and, honestly, Way too much time spent overthinking combat scenarios. We can process and react to threats in ways that look faster than they actually are. I'm not moving quicker than you. I'm moving sooner because I'm predicting where you'll be. Supreme Legate Corvin exchanged glances with the other senior officers. Candidate Kade, I'm going to ask you a direct question and I need an honest answer. How many humans can do what you just did? Mira hesitated. Define can do. Could replicate your performance in the trial with appropriate training. Oh, Mira thought about it. Conservatively, maybe 60% of the human population. With dedicated training and practice. We teach these skills to children in something called martial arts. It's mostly for discipline and exercise, but yeah, the fundamentals are there. The room went very, very quiet. 60%, Crash whispered. Of 8 billion humans, Vrell'ix added, doing math that was making his head hurt. That's almost 5 billion potential fighters with these capabilities, Admiral Thorn9 said flatly. Mira held up her hands. Okay, but most humans aren't interested in fighting. We're actually pretty peaceful once we're not starving or scared. We prefer agriculture, art, arguing about sports, and consuming truly irresponsible amounts of caffeinated beverages. Fighting is like a hobby for most of us. A hobby, Supreme Legate Corvin repeated. A hobby she's demonstrably excellent at. Vrell'ix interjected, because someone needed to state the obvious. Corvin walked to the window overlooking the training grounds. 300 years ago, when humanity first applied for coalition membership, we categorized them as Category 4 intelligence. Adequate problem solvers. Decent with ranged weapons. Mediocre physical specimens. We were wrong. The question is how wrong. Sir, Mira said quietly, if I may offer a perspective? Please. You weren't wrong about our physical specifications. We are mediocre, by your standards. Weak, even. But you were wrong about what that means. You saw limitations. We saw puzzles. Every physical disadvantage became a problem to solve, an obstacle to overcome. You can't outfight a predator with natural weapons, so you learn to outthink it. You can't survive hostile environments, so you build tools and shelters. You can't run as fast, so you run longer. Everything you saw today wasn't exceptional human ability. It was standard human stubbornness applied to a combat scenario. Vrell'ix found himself smiling despite the gravity of the situation. You're saying the entire human species is essentially too stubborn to accept its own limitations. Now you're getting it. Mira grinned. We're the species that looked at the impossible and said, watch this. It's our best and worst quality simultaneously. Supreme Legate Corvin turned from the window. Candidate Kade, you're hereby advanced to permanent instructor status at the Galactic Combat Academy. Effective immediately. We need you to teach our forces how humans think, how they fight, and how they turn disadvantages into advantages. I'm sorry, what? You heard me. Also, the Coalition would like to formally apologize for 300 years of underestimating your species. It was poorly done of us. Mira looked genuinely shocked. I just wanted to pass the trial and prove we weren't completely useless at hand-to-hand combat. Well, Vrell'ix said, pulling up the trial footage one more time, watching Mira move through opponents like smoke through a screen. Mission accomplished. Spectacularly, terrifyingly accomplished. Outside, the evening sun was setting over the academy grounds. Somewhere in the distance, the next round of candidates was preparing for their trials, completely unaware that everything they thought they knew about combat effectiveness had just been rewritten by a gymnastics instructor from Earth who really just wanted to make her call home on time. Humans, Vrell'ix decided, were going to be an interesting addition to the Coalition. Interesting and absolutely terrifying in the best possible way. If this story entertained or taught you something, please like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us grow and bring you more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.